Give it a minute. I think it's working. Excellent. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Running a minute or so behind tonight. I apologize for that, but glad to see that everybody is doing well. Wife and I actually just got back from the grocery store. Had to stock up for the week. We're not buying. We're not hoarding or anything like that. I'd like everyone to do the same. Be reasonable. Buy only what you need. We went to Meijer here, and the toilet paper was gone, completely gone. Canned goods. There were canned goods. There was pasta. No toilet paper. Are we still doing this, people? Really? Are we still buying up all the ridiculous toilet paper? I mean, come on. It boggles my mind. Anyway, public service announcement, right? Stop hoarding toilet paper. What is wrong with people? So, hi, Connie. Thank you for joining. I appreciate that. Just talking about how I went to the grocery store and toilet paper is still gone. It makes no sense to me. How much toilet paper could you possibly need, right? The symptoms don't include needing additional toilet paper. Anyway, so I was actually going to wait on this announcement, but I decided to put it out there. I actually was interviewed by Vice News. They reach out to me about they're doing a documentary on the Q movement, QAnon, the connection to what they said they as the connection to COVID-19, whether I think there is one or isn't one, all that stuff. I did the full interview with them yesterday. I'm sure they'll edit it up. But to be fair, the person who interviewed me is Lee Adams. He does Minority Report, and he's the one who did the I think the title was Black Conservatives for Trump. It might be something else, but that's generally what it was about. He was extremely fair, I think, in that one, which is why I agreed to do it. I do have the full interview, so just in case. But he claims that he won't be chopping up my answers and putting it for different questions. He claims that he won't be editing it up in a dishonest way. We'll see. Again, it's Vice News, so they're not exactly friendly to conservatives. They're I don't know how many interviews they're doing. I don't know, what the end goal is. According to Lee, the point of this is to kind of get everybody's perspective, right? One thing that I stressed during the interview, and I would like to address that here, is there are a lot of rumors, right? A lot of rumors going around about things that might be happening, about things that we'd like to be happening in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. One of those, there are tons of rumors, there are tons of beliefs. One thing that I want to stress to everyone is do your research, right? Look into things, learn about things. That's one of the things that I think was one of the founding tenets as such of the Q movement and the poster that is Q plus President Trump, perhaps. There are a lot of things that people take from it, but the one main thing that I took from being involved with Q and learning about Q is do your own research. Don't just follow some of these people that claim to be in the know and claim to have insider information and tell you things. Don't just blindly follow anyone. Do your research, look into whatever these people say. We've seen it, right? We know that there are people out there who worm their way into movements either for financial gain or because they're being paid or because they're just looking to sow chaos, right? There are those people that exist. We know this. So be careful who you follow. It's been a part of the Q movement since the beginning. Do your own research, learn about the things that are going on. There is nothing wrong with sharing theories. There is nothing wrong with talking to people about what you think is going on. Hi, Paul. Thanks for joining. There's nothing wrong with that. We need a healthy discourse. We need a healthy discussion about the things that we might think are happening. But there's a difference. But oh, absolutely. Connie says I listen to Trump and his staff. Yes, absolutely. I'm not saying don't listen to the president. I'm talking about random people on the internet. I want to make that clear. I'm not talking about the people in the administration or Trump or his staff. I'm talking about these random people on the internet that claim to have insider information or claim to be an important part of something. Just be cautious what you take as fact. That's what I'm saying. Be cautious what you take as gospel versus what you can look into improve. Now, I do my very best. Those who kind of follow both my personal and my Congress pages see that I generally have very different content that I post, especially on Twitter between my personal Twitter account and my Congress Twitter account. On my Congress campaign account, I try to share official information, helpful resources for people, things that people can use to obtain information, whether it's what's going on with the stimulus, a breakdown of the bill, inspirational stories. Like today, for example, a story came out about some students in Michigan City that are making personal protective equipment, right, with 3D printers. That's awesome. That's awesome. That's what America is about. That's what America kind of was founded on is helping one another and utilizing, the negative things that are going on to produce positive results. The daily briefings, which oddly enough, the mainstream media is now trying to get rid of, right? The daily briefings, the ones that have caused Trump's approval ratings to increase, those are incredible, instrumental. By all means, let's watch the briefings. Let's learn from the president what he's doing, what his staff tells us is going on. So one of the things that I've seen, right, as far as the briefings and the mainstream media twisting the narrative thereof, the hydrochloroquine and azithromycin, I believe, combination, which is supposed to help considerably with coronavirus symptoms and ultimately allow people to recover. If you notice these governors, right? These governors are like, oh, we're going to prosecute doctors if they prescribe this. We're going to make sure that they're not giving this out because if Trump says it, it must be a lie. That's their logic. Well, I don't know if you've heard, but there are studies coming out all over the place that are like, wow, this works. Wow, this works. Our president, who closed the borders to China very early, who is doing daily briefings. Now, remember, this is the same press corps that not that long ago was complaining because Trump didn't do briefings. I don't know if you remember that. I do. Donald Trump needs to do more briefings. He needs to talk to the press. Now that he's talking to the press, they want to not do that, right? Paul stated, yeah, I do agree, Paul. He says, before we had corporate control from Washington and red tape on everything, we were the greatest. And that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. The United States was the greatest country on earth. Personally, to me, it still is, right? I do want to clarify that. But we could be so much greater if we could loosen up Washington's control, Washington's stranglehold on so much in this country. Between everything from manufacturing to states' rights, if we could just get the federal government to back off, right? We could be so much better than what we already are. America, I love this country. Like I can't even express how much I love America. I can't think. I would never consider living anywhere else. There's just so much that makes this country amazing. It's the only country on the face of the earth with free speech protected. The UK did away with that. Other countries either never had it or did away with it. Canada, people talk about UK and Canada, they don't have protected free speech at all. We are the only country with protected First Amendment rights, and we are the last country with a Second Amendment. I broke down and got a pop today. This is actually my first Mountain Dew of any kind in quite a while. I used to drink Mountain Dew all the time, especially when I worked at Indiana State Prison. That was kind of my go-to. I drank Mountain Dew just constantly. Horrible for you. And I quit drinking that at all there for quite a while. And that's actually what caused me to lose. I actually lost over 100 pounds because I quit drinking so much pop. I quit drinking pop at all. So those of you out there looking for a diet, if you want, a way to lose a lot of weight, stop drinking pop. If you drink pop a lot, it's probably one of the easiest ways to lose weight. Just swap out the pop for water. Drink more water, drink less pop. That's really all I did. Got a little more exercise. Walking is probably the best exercise on the planet. But back to the topics, right? So there's a lot of misinformation in the Q community and just in general. I'm not picking on the Q community because there are some wonderful people that are attached to the QAnon movement and all of that. I just want people to really think for yourself. Just analyze things with a degree of not suspicion really, but trust but verify, right? Trust but verify. Okay, yeah, this is probably true, but look at the evidence. I will tell you that I've seen video after video after video of empty hospitals, right? Have I said what that means to me? No. What I've said is this is weird, right? This is odd. It's not what I expected. We were told by mainstream media that these hospitals are overwhelmed, that they're war zones. And we see hospitals, even those in New York and other large metropolitan areas, that are very, very quiet, right? People film, inside and out in some cases. Now, let me be very clear. I am not urging you to go film your hospital. If you don't need to go to the hospital, don't go. But people who choose to do that are releasing videos of quiet, right? Crickets, nothing. And it does make me wonder what's going on because the media claims it's just they're bursting at the seams. There are people struggling in the waiting rooms, dying. That's their claim, not mine. And I think that's another aspect of trust but verify, right? The mainstream media has been lying to us for years. We've seen it. They talk about this, they talk about that. They take little tiny snippets of this and portray it as something else. And the president has called them out on it recently, right? Especially Acosta, that guy. He's called them out. He said, read the whole statement, right? Read the whole statement. Once you read the whole statement, it changes everything. Facts without context, right? That's what it comes down to. Facts without context are not nearly as useful or completely useless, right? Context changes everything. It changes everything. An entire statement is the statement, what he said, what he meant, all of that. But if you take just a tiny portion of a statement, right, it changes the whole meaning. It becomes something completely different. So anyway, if anybody has any questions, just drop them in the comments here. But there are people, and it's not just I'm not just focusing on Q, right? There are people that are out there that don't have your interests at heart, right? They're not out there doing this out of the goodness of their heart, whether it's reporting information, whether it's sharing, stories or helping you decipher Q drops. There are some that do that. And they're usually the ones that are not locked behind paywalls of some sort. There are those that are doing this that are just doing it to get rich, right? That are just doing this to make money off of desperate people. It's just like anything else. And I guess there's something going around about special secret ingredients that you can use to get rid of coronavirus or help, yourself or your loved one and all this. It basically comes down to if somebody's trying to sell you something, then you should really question their motives, right? You should question what they're doing and why they're doing it. Paul, Russian spy, he says he agrees with the comment. Stop the subsidies. Yeah, I agree. The entire subsidy industry really makes no sense to me, especially when you look at some of the industries that the subsidies go to right now. Fossil fuel industry is one of them. How long has that been around? I could understand it initially. As long as we have a free market, we don't need subsidies. Just as long as we provide subsidies, it's not really a free market. People want it all comes down to people wanting the money, right? They want that money. And subsidies is no different. The industries, the people that are into that, right? They just want the money. He says, I agree with Pop. It makes a difference all around with health. Yeah. There's so many bad things in this stuff. That's why no more than one a day for me now, at most. Usually I'll go at least most of a week between when I treat myself, as it were. And it's mostly the caffeine. If I have coffee, that day I generally won't drink Pop, but every once in a while I'll miss my coffee in the morning for whatever, and then I'll have to go and pick up a Pop. Otherwise, I get a caffeine headache, right? I'm addicted to caffeine. I think a lot of us are. He asks, what do you think of the Russian spy plane? I think I missed that one. Tell me about that if you don't mind. Paul, he says, Russian spy plane. Was there something? I was at the store most of the day, so, well, not most of the day, for a little while at least. So, let's see. Nor will big industries want a free market then. Yeah. So if we trust the free market and we don't hand out free money to especially large scale corporations, they don't want a free market. They want the money, right? They want to have a leg up any way they can, which is why they spend billions and billions and billions, if not trillions of dollars, sending lobbyists to Washington to go out there and convince our lawmakers in whatever way they can, right? Convince our lawmakers to vote for things that are against our interests and are good for them. Subsidies, rules and regulations that restrict small mom and pop businesses, but allow corporations free reign, policies that allow corporations to be considered as a person, or in some cases to have more rights as a person. It's ridiculous. And it's something that needs to change. And the only way we're going to change that is by cycling, right? What I mean by that is cycle new people into office. If this person isn't doing their job and you can tell that they're bought and paid for, vote their ass out. It's that simple. Vote new people in and see what they got, see what they're about. But I think we need to focus less on, there's a big deal made, right? Anytime we have an election, there's a big deal made about experience. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about experience and how it applies to, especially a congressional representative. Why is experience in the political arena desired for a Washington representative? Do we really want someone that has already formed connections? Do we really want someone that has already made deals with people to get things done? We don't want to compromise. We need someone who is not bought and paid for. We need someone who is going to go to Washington and say, I'm going to do what's best for my district. Here's the thing, vote for me. If it doesn't work out, fire me. That's the beauty of elections, right? 2 years, that's all you got. 2 years, see how I do. If I'm not doing what you want me to do, vote for someone else next time. That's really what it comes down to. And we get these people that are there for 20 and 30 years somehow that aren't helping their districts. I don't know if you've seen Pelosi's district lately, but wow, wow. And she's just one example. There are plenty, and it's not just on one side of the aisle. It goes, to both sides of the aisle. There are those that are not there to represent their district. They're there to line their pockets. They're there to help their friends. That's what it comes down to. And it's a tragedy. It really is. I think that we need a lot more people that are willing to make the hard choices, that are willing to, like, here's the thing. Look, Massie took a lot of heat, right? And allegedly, I heard that he had to turn down, that people were trying to bribe him, that people were trying to influence him to vote for this. And he said it was really bad, right? It was very, very slimy, very political. And hey, props to the guy, props to the guy. I don't know much about Massie, but I'm certainly want to learn more about him after reading what he went through, because all he wanted to do was get everybody's vote on record, right? And he wanted to say, no, there's too much pork in this. We need to do better. We need to make sure that we're taking care of the American people and not all these corporations. That was my understanding of it. And did you see some of the comments out there that are just like, oh, this guy's, holding up the bill because he doesn't care about you? And I don't think that was the case at all. I think the guy was just like, really? $2 trillion, half of the budget? For what? And ultimately, look at what we got out of it, right? Average everyday Americans. Let's look at what the average everyday American got out of it. A $1,200 check, right? How long is that going to last? How long is that going to keep your bills paid? Most people, $1,200 isn't even their mortgage. I almost say most people, but people who live in an urban area, right? People who live in places like, Chicago, New York, hell, even close to the border here, right? Northwest Indiana, that's, rents $800, $900, $1,000 a month for a small apartment. So ultimately, we spent half a year's budget to send out a $1,200 check to the population and pad unemployment. Now, let me be very clear. I think the unemployment provisions were good. I would like to see a much, much better utilization of that. I'd like to see a different way to adjust unemployment for the long term, because unemployment's there for a reason. We pay into it for a reason. The companies pay into it for a reason. It needs to be fixed. It's very, very outdated. $390 a month or a week, excuse me, in Indiana is the maximum, and for a lot of people, that's not even a fraction of what they actually make. People, usually union people, steel mill, other industries, other manufacturing jobs that make good money, when they're laid off, $390 a week isn't much. I do like that we helped that and did some things with it. But all he was saying, and I'm talking about Massie, all he was saying was, we kind of need to look at this, right? We need to take a step back and not panic, because panic is what makes us make mistakes, right? I think my shirt keeps moving on here. I'm not trying to get all crazy here. There you go. It just comes down to, we as Americans need to do a better job of analyzing and watching what people are doing. Let's use more than common sense. Let's use critical thinking. Let's be a free thinker. Let's not let people tell us what to think. I think that's probably the best message that I can give you is learn what you can from people. And look, that includes me. I don't want you, don't just listen to everything I say and believe everything I say. Look into it, right? Learn what these people are saying and learn whether they know what they're talking about. I'm going to tell you, there's a representative, or excuse me, there's a candidate, sorry, a candidate that's running for office that doesn't have an understanding of some of the things that are most important in Northwest Indiana. Uh, I'm not going to name names, but just do your research on people. Learn, ask questions. Look at their video, look at their websites. A lot of these websites from a lot of these candidates are purposefully vague, right? They're either filled with talking points with no real information, right? Just like many, many, many people that have come before and run for office, there's a reason they do that. There's a reason they keep it vague. They keep it vague so that they can, oh, okay, supply plane, Paul said. I was wondering, I was like, what Russian spy plane? I didn't hear about that. Yeah. Right. And you know what? How much do you want to bet? This is going to okay. So for those who don't know what's going on, the Russians sent us a plane full of supplies, right? I believe it was ventilators and personal protection equipment. Uh, how much you want to bet that the Democrats are going to full on lose their minds over this? They're going to claim outlandish and wild things that have no basis in reality, right? Yeah, they're going to say just ridiculous things that Trump was this and Putin that. It's instead of going, wow, thank you very much. We appreciate the help as a country. We thank you. No, that's not going to be the focus. We know that it's going to be another impeachment goal. It's going to be something just off the deep end, ridiculous again. Which is unfortunate because if we've learned anything from this, it is that our supplies need to be made here. Our country desperately needs to come into that. We got to take care of us. We got to quit taking care of all these other countries. We have to pull our manufacturing back to this country. We have to make stuff for America here in America. Made in America used to mean something. You remember that? When I was a kid, I know it was wow, made in America, right? Made in the USA. And as I grew up, I tried to always buy American when I could. It's gotten harder. Hasn't it? If you really go out and try to buy absolutely everything that you can, right? Everything you're going to use, and you try to buy, made in the USA for everything, you're not going to get much. You're really not. Uh, it's really really sad. It is. There's no. It's not like it used to be. You used to be able to find made in the USA goods, and they were the best, the highest quality goods on the market. In some cases, you might pay a little more. Now it's almost impossible to find everything that you need that's made in the USA. I'm sure there are companies or organizations or a website or something that keeps track of stuff that's made in the USA and tries to put it out there. If anybody knows of something like that, let me know. I would appreciate that. It's hard though. It's really hard with the surge in Walmart and everything that like that. But yeah, so I saw this video. I'm trying to remember the name of it, but it was talking about how when Trump ran, right, initially back in 2015 when he was running for the 2016 election, and he was talking about how we have gotten so dependent on other countries. We have farmed out all of our factories, all of our makers of anything, right? They're all overseas now. Look at China and the prescription medications, not just prescription, but over the counter stuff too. Almost all that stuff's made in China now, which I'd like to point out for those who haven't figured it out yet. That's why Trump is so nice to China during the briefings. He's a businessman, right? He's a businessman. He's not just, kissing X's butt for the fun of it. And he's not, bowing down to the guy. He's simply keeping it very diplomatic. He's saying nice things because of previous administrations, because of the people that are in office. China has us by the balls. They own the vast majority of our debt. They have most of our production, right? Comes from there. It's not like Trump is just randomly saying nice things to China because because he himself is beholden to them. He's saying things because we as a country, unfortunately, are not independent anymore. We're not an independent country because the globalists and the people who want that agenda have done their job, right? They have made everything global. They have made sure that our factories, our medications, our vehicles are all produced in other countries. And Trump warned us about that. He told us about that when he ran. And he was right. He was absolutely right. And now the media has demonized him for that. They demonized him for closing our borders to the EU and to China before that. If you look, he was called xenophobic, and it's all more of the same narrative. There are things that Trump does that I don't agree with, but I can't imagine having anyone else as president right now. I mean, really, stop and think about it. We have a guy who understands businesses. He understands. He's been there for 3 years. He understands diplomacy now with other countries. He has no problem telling it like it is. Has assembled a team that knows what they're doing. He's addressing us Americans every single day via briefings. He's telling us what's going on. I really I don't see anyone else being able to do the job that he can do, that he has done. If for those that want to criticize Trump for the infrastructure issues as far as PPE and ventilators and stuff like that, you might want to check into the fact that Obama allowed those stockpiles to be virtually depleted during the SARS epidemic. All that stuff was used, and almost none of it was replaced, right? It was left dangerously low. It's a very, very bad situation, and the man has done a heck of a lot for this country. He has done things that I didn't think anybody could get through. Now, really, just stop and think. Imagine, because look, let's be honest about our choices here for the 2020 election. We know that Bernie, they're taking it away from him again. You can, regardless of how you feel about Bernie Sanders, regardless of whether you want him to be president or not, I think anyone should be able to look at what they're doing to Bernie Sanders and realize that that's wrong. These people who, were in it to win it allegedly waited until just the right moment, just the right time, and then they all pulled out and endorsed Biden, right? Joe Biden. Sleepy Joe. So catch up on some comments here. Let's see here. Paul says many unions will pay their members when work isn't available. That's true. Some will. There are some unions, though, that won't let you go work for a non-union place, and you're just expected to starve. I'm gonna tell you that, and that's wrong. He says, I'll get flack for this, but many Americans expect to make $15 an hour plus no matter what the job is. That's not always feasible without making everything outrageously expensive. Okay, yeah, I agree with that, Paul. Look, let's talk about minimum wage here for a minute. So there's a reason That minimum wage is called minimum. Now we can have conversations all day long about college and how there's not enough jobs in the market and all of that. That's another conversation. Let's talk about minimum wage. The reason it's called minimum wage is because it's the least that a company can pay. Uh, and there are many companies that do pay minimum wage, right? Especially more rural locations. That's the way it is. Now, an interesting side of that is people look, you shouldn't get $15 an hour flipping burgers. I'm sorry. Like as an entry level, it's one thing you've been there for a while, you put your time in, or you're a manager or something like that. But I've said it before, when it comes to minimum wage, if we were to just across the board federalize, make the federal minimum wage $15 an hour across the board, not only would many small businesses go out of business, the ones that didn't go out of business would have to slash hours. Everything would increase in price. Everything would go up. We know this. Here's the point though, is you have Joe who's been working at this place for 5 years and has eventually worked his way up to 14, 15 an hour, right? Across the board minimum wage, $15 an hour. Joe doesn't go up to, this person making 8, they go to 15. Joe doesn't go up to 19 or whatever, right? Said 20, he goes up to 15 as well. This person making 15.50, right? Everybody suddenly gets $15 an hour. They're not going to get a raise as well. A flat across the board minimum wage increase isn't the solution. It just isn't. I think that there are conversations that can be had about some kind of percentage increase, but a flat across the board isn't. I just don't think it's the solution. All we're going to end up is with everything costing more, just like has happened. Paul says minimum wage shouldn't exist at all. I see where you're coming from, and I agree to an extent. If we could get rid of all regulations on business, I think that we might be able to institute something like that. Unfortunately, because big business is allowed to run rampant, because big business is the one doing the lobbying and stuff like that, the workers in many cases do get shafted. I won't say that I'm purely against any minimum wage, just because there's so many things that would have to be figured out before we could do something like that. I will say that corporations have entirely too much power. Places like Walmart and Amazon, they love the minimum wage. They love it. They love it because the minimum wage, when they pay minimum wage or even slightly more, these people aren't getting enough money to live on. They make it just enough hours to where they don't qualify for full time, and then they go on to state benefits because they're not making enough money. They come under the cap, right? It's a big racket. It's a big racket, and then they get tax breaks for hiring people that are on benefits. Yeah. So, yeah, Paul made a good point. First of all, he said, we know this, Dion, the leftists don't see that because economics isn't taught anymore. Right. Economics is skimmed over just like civics class is. People don't understand the way the government works. There are far too many people that seem to believe that the United States is a direct democracy. We are not. We are a constitutional republic. It drives me nuts when we have people that are leading this country, that are in charge, right? In very important positions across the nation, and they keep talking about this democracy, this is a threat to our democracy, our democracy, our democracy. Not our republic. They apparently don't even remember the pledge. And I know it can be argued that a constitutional republic is a form of democracy, but they don't make that distinction, right? They just talk about democracy, democracy, democracy. And unfortunately, the truth is not taught in schools. The truth gets mixed up with all the other things that they want them to learn versus what they need to learn. Many high school seniors can't pass the basic citizenship test for the United States, which I think is tragic. There have been lawmakers that have proposed to make that a requirement that in order to graduate high school, you have to pass the citizenship test. I got to admit, I'm kind of in favor of that. I dig that. I'm not going to lie. Uh, Paul says the market can determine an appropriate wage itself if left alone. Yeah, I think so too. I just think that there's ways that we would have to go about it to ensure that abuse doesn't happen. Uh, Minimum wage is one of those things that the unions caused to come about, and don't get me wrong, the unions have done a lot of good, a lot of good. They are still necessary in some ways. I think that a lot of the problems with unions don't come in because they're unions. It comes with leadership of these unions and the politicization. There we go. Of things that shouldn't be political. We can all agree that that workers deserve certain things. That we shouldn't have child labor. We shouldn't have little kids being worked to death in mines. We can agree with these things. However, I think it's gone too far. I think it's been weaponized, just like everything else, right? There's a reason why these unions keep endorsing these same candidates and the same types of candidates over and over and over. It's no secret. Uh, let's see here. Yeah, so Paul says it needs to be a requirement to know those things in these days. Absolutely. Absolutely. If you don't know how this government is set up and what the different branches of government do, then how can you effectively vote? Realistically, I mean, seriously. And the problem is, many of these high school seniors that are getting ready, not all, there are a lot that are actually very, very involved and more in recent years than have ever been before. But there are many of these high schoolers that don't think about it, right? They don't think about politics. They don't want to care about politics. And so, unfortunately, they don't take the time to learn the things. Now, these are the same people that are going to be, adults. They're going to be shipped off to college. And then these professors take that lack of knowledge, right? And then they twist it. They push their beliefs onto college students so that they can then be turned into the next generation of activists, right? That's where, and look, we know that Antifa, I'm going to talk about Antifa for a minute. Have you ever compared the symbol of Antifa with the old anti-fascism movement in Germany? It's the same thing, right? It's the same. It's just some color changes. It's the same. It's the same organization, and the roots are the same. It's funded by Soros, right? George Soros is probably one of, not the, but one of the single greatest threats to this country that exist. For those of you who don't know who he is, I highly recommend you do your research on the man. I use the term man very, very loosely. I think he's evil. I think he's the scum of the earth. He is out to destroy this nation. He is out to cripple us. He is out to corrupt this system. He's said it many times. He hates this country, and he is going to infiltrate it. His money finances the many, many, many anti-gun legislation movement, the anti the anti-fascism, the Antifa movement. His money goes to many organizations that are not out for the good of this country. Uh, so yeah, this is yes, Paul put he's a devil. He is. Right to work. So I talked about that before you hopped on, just so you know. I talked about right to work and how some candidates running don't know what it is. They really don't. I don't know whether they're making a mistake or they just have no idea. But right to work doesn't let, I'm not even, look, I am against right to work for reasons that I've stated in the past. I'm not going to rehash it here, but I am against it, right to work. I don't think that it fosters a good relationship. I don't believe that it is written correctly. It allows a lot of abuse, and it forces unions to defend people, to come to the rescue of those that choose not to pay union dues. If you don't want to pay dues, that's fine, right? You're just not in the union, and that's pretty much a thing. It's been a thing for a long time. But the union shouldn't have to come to your rescue when you want them to. And okay, yeah, my wife, my wife's gonna say it. I'm too nice. Uh, yeah, he doesn't. She says Spencer does not know what right to work is. We watched part of a live stream that one of my opponents did, and one of the questions he was asked was about right to work, and he has a flawed understanding of it, to say the least. He doesn't know what it is. He talks about being able to hire union bricklayers or businesses versus non-union businesses. Unfortunately, that's not what right to work is about. Right to work is a misnomer. It should be called right to fire, because that's what it is. Right to fire anyone for any reason and force the union to try to defend people or take care of people when they haven't paid union dues. They basically, it tries to strangle the unions, is what it does. It allows everybody to not pay union dues and then force the union to protect them when it comes down to it. They get full union benefits without having to pay union dues. It really is just that simple, and I'm against it. I haven't heard another Republican candidate come out, for at least for first district, come out and say that they support the repeal of right to work. I haven't heard a single one of them say that they're against right to work. I am, for the reasons that I've stated before. So my wife wants everyone to know that her comments are not endorsed by Dion for Congress. She is, I look, I'm going to say this: if you're going to represent Northwest Indiana in Congress, then you should know what right to work's about. If you don't know what it is, then you should do your research and read into it. It's critical legislation. It's done a lot of damage, in my opinion. It cost me my job. So, yeah, I know what right to work is. When I had the meeting with the steel workers, I didn't do as good a job as I could have explaining my position on right to work. I did tell them I was against it, but I think they misunderstood why. I had a comment when I published my survey. I had a comment from one of the people that were there that said they believed that my understanding of right to work was flawed, and I said I could understand how you would think that from the way that I came off. I said I could have done a better job explaining myself on that, but I do know what right to work is about, and I do know that there are people who don't understand what it is. Again, as far as I know, I'm the only Republican to especially publicly say that I am against the right to work legislation. So if anybody else has any questions, drop them in. Feel free to drop them in comments on YouTube, or send messages to me. I answer my messages. There are those I don't know. I don't have any names for you, and I don't like name dropping and blaming people for things. My wife has no problem doing it, but I don't like doing that because I don't think we accomplish a lot that way. But if you have questions, then hit me up on social media. I answer my questions. I answer people who ask me questions there. I will address them in a video if I don't get a chance to answer all your questions there. Paul says it's brought a lot of new jobs to Indiana as a whole. Has it though? I mean, really, has it? I don't know that that's the case. It certainly hasn't helped Northwest Indiana at all, in my opinion. The numbers don't bear that out. I I'd like to see some side by side comparisons of states with and without it. That was the promise when they said they were going to pass the right to work legislation. Was, oh, we're going to see a huge influx of jobs. At least up here we haven't really, unless you're talking about Starbucks or Amazon warehouse or stuff like that. We haven't seen good quality jobs flood into this area. We've seen a lot of short term or service based industry jobs. Paul says supposedly Subaru of Indiana is a non union shop. Okay. Here's the thing about right to work is it shouldn't affect that. You should be able to have a non union shop if that's what you choose, but be prepared for people to march on it and whatnot. That's not all that's involved in it. That was already a thing. You can choose whether to join a union or not join a union. I know that there are companies that have made that harder to do, both to join or not to join. But there are options out there. There always have been. There's legislation on the books already for that. Uh, Liz says Northwest Indiana has a higher than national average and state average unemployment. That's correct. We have, even before this started, we had a really high unemployment rate as compared to the national average and the state average. Northwest Indiana hasn't benefited, at least in a real tangible way, from right to work legislation. The really good jobs aren't materializing like they said they would. They said we're gonna have some really good high quality jobs come in, and with this right to work legislation, it's going to be better for everybody. I don't see it. I don't see it, and I think that there are some real negatives to the legislation and the way that it's currently written. Again, that's my opinion. I back the steel workers and the tradesmen. Without unions, I think that they would be a lot worse off. I don't think that they would. They definitely wouldn't have the benefits that they have, and I don't think they'd have most of the pay that they have. So it's been a pleasure hanging out with you. I'm almost to an hour, so I'm gonna end this. I'm gonna do a longer one on this weekend. I'm gonna try to talk to wife into joining me again. We'll do a Saturday night hangout session, maybe have some pizza or something, and hang out with you guys and field your questions. And let's try to do Saturday, right? Let's try to make it less political and more of just a chill session, right? Maybe we can talk about our favorite movies, our favorite books, things that we've learned from this whole social distancing thing. I've learned that 6 feet isn't enough to be away from somebody when they stink. You need more than 6 feet. That smell carries quite well. I've seen some people that really should use a scrub brush. I've seen people that really need to use deodorant. So yeah, 6 feet, social distancing, not enough. Yeah, so Liz says we'll talk about all kinds of stuff besides politics. Bet you can't guess my favorite color. Yeah, let's do some stuff like that. We'll start having some interesting conversations, and I'll be here tomorrow night. But I'll talk about the normal stuff. But let's plan for Saturday night to be a Paul said bright pink. Yeah, that's not my favorite color, just so you know. But you got a few more guesses. So, all right, I will see you same bat time, same bat channel tomorrow night, 7 p.m. I look forward to it, and God bless you, and God bless the USA.